In the early 1900s, millions of Europeans flocked to the United States to find work and experience what would soon become known as the American Dream. When construction began at Dodge, Maine in 1910, it would only encompass a few small buildings, but it would soon explode as Dodge became one of the largest auto manufacturers in the world. Located just outside Detroit, in the then village of Hamtramck, the Polish enclave was soon bursting at the seams with new immigrants. Many of Detroit's new ethnic groups formed distinct communities, like the Poles did in Hamtramck. Still, many ethnic groups were dispersed throughout these Eastern European communities without leaving as large a footprint. In the late 1800s, the modern territory of Ukraine was divided between the Austro-Hungarian and Russian empires. Many of the early Ukrainian immigrants to the United States left for economic reasons, as the region faced many hardships. Some fled poverty and political oppression, and some were still reeling from the generational effects of serfdom, as the abolition of serfdom and feudal obligations in the Austro-Hungarian Empire had occurred in 1848 and Russia in 1861. As the wave of industrialization in the 1900s began to rise, Ukrainians found themselves in population centers, like Detroit, to work in factories, hoping to catch the rising tide alongside other immigrant groups. A sizable Ukrainian population settled on the north side of Hamtramck and nearby in Detroit, which nearly surrounds the enclave, to work in the nearby plants, and many found jobs at Dodge, Maine, which continued to expand. Back in Ukraine, the struggle continued as the rise of Soviet power was imminent. Ukraine declared independence in 1918 after the collapse of the Russian Empire, though freedom would be short-lived as it was absorbed into the Soviet Union in 1922. Between 1932 and 1933, the Holodomor, or Ukrainian famine, was orchestrated by Stalin to stamp out Ukrainian nationalism, and most modern scholars have ruled it a genocide despite Russian denial. Ukrainians in America tried to send relief to their families, but the Soviet government refused to accept it and made immigration more challenging for those trying to escape. Meanwhile, Ukrainians in Hamtramck and other pockets of Detroit were making new lives for their families in America. The Ukrainian Workers' Home, or Ukrainsky Dym Association, was founded in 1916, and this structure was built to house it in the 1930s. Technically located in Detroit, the organization was the center of Ukrainian life in the area for decades. It was home to community events, boxing showcases, conventions, banquets, and special meetings. Ukrainians were active community members in Hamtramck and Detroit, publishing newspapers and magazines, organizing social clubs and religious groups, and becoming active in labor and political organizations. Most of the Ukrainian population in Hamtramck was located just south of the structure, anchored by Immaculate Conception Ukrainian Catholic Church, which was designed by Herman and Simmons and opened in 1941. During World War II, Ukrainians in their homeland were caught between the Nazis and the Soviets, while thousands of Ukrainian Americans and Canadians enlisted to fight against the Axis powers. Post-war, even more Ukrainians flooded into Hamtramck and Detroit, bolstering numbers of the Ukrainian businesses and the Ukrainian Workers' Home, which would become the Ukrainian American Center in 1943. In 1951, the hall showed a color film of Ukraine shot by Dr. John Yachu of Windsor. This must have been an interesting time at the organization, as many members were born in Ukraine, but their children had never seen it with their own eyes. Events like this were a good way for them to get a taste of the old country. In addition to hosting community events, the building had a bar for members of the organization, which was common for ethnic halls. In 1951, the organization was suspended for 30 days and fined $250 for selling to a non-member and selling on Sundays. Club organizations have a different liquor license that only enables them to sell to members. It's similar to how the Carbon Athletic Club in Delray or organizations like the Fraternal Order of Eagles operate today, and violations were common in that era. The press went quiet on the Ukrainian American Center in the 1950s, typical for many ethnic halls in post-war Detroit, signaling a changing city. Larger groups, like the Polish immigrants who built Hamtramck, slowly became Americanized and moved to the suburbs alongside other white Americans, creating a new ethnic group and nationality altogether. Though Ukrainians never had as large a community in Hamtramck, a similar diaspora occurred, making it more challenging to keep organizations like the Ukrainian American Center afloat. The closure of Detroit auto plants furthered the shuffling of population centers, including Dodge, Maine, which employed many first, second, and third generation immigrants until it was closed and demolished in 1981. Despite a new GM plant reopening just south of Hamtramck, on the former site of Dodge, Maine, in a Polish neighborhood that many Ukrainians undoubtedly called home, the jobs never returned to their same heights. Many Ukrainians moved to Warren, a nearby suburb, and a handful stayed in Hamtramck. Back on Carpenter Street, the former Ukrainian American Center was used as a concert venue for a time, hosting punk bands like Negative Approach in the 1980s. In 1986, the Ukrainian American Center changed its name to the Ukrainian American Center Foundation, Incorporated. Many folks online have reported that the structure was eventually sold to the hospital next door, which closed around 2000, having been used for storage. Today, both buildings are owned by the same LLC. Despite sitting vacant for over 2 decades, the Ukrainian workers' home is in solid shape. Even as Hamtramck's population has risen over the last decade and a half, the structure shows no signs of life. Since 2000, Hamtramck has become a haven for immigrants from Yemen, Bangladesh, and other countries, which has changed the city's landscape. I'd imagine this resembles how a small German farming community made way for Polish neighborhoods. That said, the diversity in Hamtramck today is even more striking because of the wide range of cultures represented here. Still, there's a Ukrainian presence in the city. Immaculate Conception Ukrainian Catholic Church still anchors the neighborhood, and in 2020, the city of Hamtramck unofficially designated Commerce Street as Shevchenko Street and the area as a Ukrainian heritage neighborhood. Taras Shevchenko, credited with the foundation of modern Ukrainian poetry and literature, was a political prisoner later exiled by the Russians for his Ukrainian nationalism. Since his death in 1861, he's been a powerful symbol for the country. The Ukrainian Self-Reliance Federal Credit Union is across the street, too. Unlike the Ukrainian workers' home, Hamtramck's Ukrainian population has risen in recent years. After the invasion of Ukraine by the Russians in February 2022, thousands of Ukrainians were able to escape the war zone in the United States as a part of a program under the Joe Biden administration, which gave the group humanitarian parole. Like post-World War II refugees, Ukrainians could find work in Detroit despite it looking much different than it did 80 years prior. These Ukrainians found work in factories, at Polish restaurants in Hamtramck, and in other industries. Though not as pronounced as that of the Poles, Ukrainians have had a lasting presence in Detroit and Hamtramck. Despite being across the border into the city of Detroit from the Ukrainian Heritage neighborhood, the former Ukrainian workers' home is worthy of a historic designation and rehabilitation into something that the community can use once more. If you're interested in learning more information about Ukrainian history in Hamtramck, Detroit, and Michigan, visit the Ukrainian American Archives and Museum on Joseph Campo in Hamtramck. If you had the money, what would you do with this building? So I just got back from my bike ride through Hamtramck to the Ukrainian workers' home, and I realized that I forgot to shoot an outro. So if you enjoyed this, please throw a like on the video, drop a comment down below about what you think should happen with this building, and subscribe to the channel for a new video every Friday. If you've already subscribed and you want to support the channel, you can look in the description below to buy a t-shirt that I've designed or get a print from my print store. Until next time, this building matters.